Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of our Let's Talk Arsenal series. I'm joined today by one great goals writer, Ben Browning. How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Yeah, thanks for having me back. Been doing well. Been surviving.
Yeah?
How about
How's
you?
things? Ben, of course, is a former colleague of mine from when I was at 101. And yeah, it's been a while since we've had a catch up. But things are good in the world of writing.
Yeah. I mean, it's transfer season. There's always stuff to write about, and there's always the same thing to write about again and again and again. But, aside from that, it's all right.
Or do 8 a.m. shows every single day about every single day. So, yes.
It must be hard for you this season. We've only been linked with about 5 players.
I know, it's been really tough. There's been nothing to talk about at all. It's been a real bore. No, of course, it's been hectic. It's fair to say. It's been hectic indeed. But welcome everybody that's joining us in the live chat box. Thank you so much for doing so. Apologies there was no 8 a.m. show, as I try and take one day off a day, and Sundays have kind of become that day. So apologies for that. But we'll be back as normal tomorrow at 8 a.m. But I am trying to do more of these afternoon and evening shows for you guys. So I hope it's worth it. Just a massive, first of all, big thank you to Hugo Jurigard, I believe. I hope that's pronounced correctly. Thank you so much for becoming a member. Really appreciate the support on the channel. And, of course, to everybody else joining us. But I'm sure you're all giving Hugo a massive welcome in the chat box already. The reason for this show and what is becoming a little bit more common on the channel is a little bit of a reaction to kind of some of the big talking points around Arsenal and some of the things that get discussed on other YouTube channels and also what's get discussed on Twitter. And I had a couple of, not back and forth because it was literally just one reply, but I saw a tweet from Football 365's writer Jason Suter, who said, next season is massive for Mikel Arteta. 0 excuses now. The whole squad will be his and the overhaul will have been basically complete. Now, before I give you kind of my views on this, Ben, I'm curious just to kind of get your reaction to this concept of Arteta having no excuses next season if we indeed do complete what our prospective business is this summer.
Yeah, I think it's because he doesn't have any previous pedigree that everyone needs to see this sort of concrete step up, I suppose, into what he's always been promised to be as a top manager, into that translating with the players on the pitch. And I think with other managers like, Antonio Conte, for example, you can point to Inter Milan, you can point to Chelsea, and Erik ten Hag, you can point to Ajax. With Arteta, there's always going to be that, well, he's come straight from Manchester City as an assistant coach. And I think that there's always, until something concrete happens in the league, because obviously we won the FA Cup with him. That goes under the radar that we won the FA Cup playing with a back three with, Tierney at left wing back, Aubameyang at left wing. That was a cobbled together squad. But the idea of this project is, I suppose, that it needs to start translating onto the pitch. And off the back of that 4th place disappointment last season, by the end, I suppose there's sort of added pressure to push on from there and take 3rd and 4th place this season.
Yeah, and I think that when it comes to Arsenal's previous transfer business, obviously we've not seen Arsenal really go aggressively into the market at the start of the window for quite some time. The last early signing I really remember was Willian 2 years ago. We got that deal sorted pretty early on. And then the other big summer was the Santi Cazorla, Podolski, Olivier Giroud summer, where we got kind of that business done really early. I think Alexis Sanchez was done fairly early as well. I think it was done before the Emirates Cup because he obviously debuted in that mini tournament, if you will. But for me, I'm really struggling with the idea of throwing on the pressure in June. I get the idea of we've got expectations and we want to push towards Champions League qualification. And trust me, I sat here and have said a number of times that for next season I need to see progress. And I don't feel like there is anything left to progress except to qualify for the Champions League next season, because we basically finished as high as we possibly could without doing that. So either winning the Europa League next year or finishing in the top 4 is the 2 ways we can progress. But at the same time, and whilst I can have a balanced view about that, I am struggling, Ben, with this kind of pressure already, and we haven't even completed, this business. And I know that I sat here with friends yesterday talking about kind of how good this transfer window could be, but I'm struggling with throwing the pressure onto Arteta, one, before we've even done this business that we're trying to do, and secondly, when it's June, like I will be happy to sit in November if we've lost our first 5 out of 10 odd games and say this isn't good enough. But in June, I just can't quite get my head around why we would want to pile the pressure on at this point.
I think that a lot of people seem to suggest that the earlier you do your business, the better that is. And, that makes that you win winning the transfer window is like a big thing now, isn't it? Where, Arsenal win the transfer window, Spurs were winning it a week ago when they signed Bissouma, and now we're winning it because we've got Raphinha and Gabriel Jesus on the way potentially. And people seem to forget it doesn't shut until 2nd of September or whatever it is this year. And Chelsea will spend. Chelsea are going to probably get Sterling by the looks of it. They're linked with De Ligt. They might get Dembele. It's not like Arsenal are improving in a vacuum. Every team around them is trying to improve. And Man United, I suppose, are the only one that you can say they've only really gone for De Jong so far. But Chelsea will have Chilwell back. Reece James will be fine. They'll bring in those players. Spurs will improve. They'll have content for the whole season. There's a lot more nuance, I suppose, to it than just Arsenal signed 5 really good players. That means we need to suddenly, become 3rd, 4th best team in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. Whilst we continue on with this discussion, what I would like to say is this is an open forum for today's show. If you would like to come on and say you're sitting here and listening, what on earth are Ben and Tom talking about? I don't agree with a single thing these idiots are saying. Well, you've got the chance to come on and tell us where your views differ. And, of course, how you feel about the situation. If you think genuinely Arteta has no excuse next season at all if we pull off this business, then do get in touch. You can tweet me at the Gooner Talk TV, and you can get in touch via Instagram as well and come and voice your views on this afternoon's show as well. We're going to be sticking around for a fair chunk of time just discussing this, and, of course, a lot of comments from the chat box, of which is where I want to kind of go to next. Akshat says there are mainly 2 parties for the most part. Those that indulge in these narratives, the salty rival fans, and the people that weren't convinced by the manager since day one and refused to open their mind. How much do you think this plays into it, Ben? Do you think there is kind of a rhetoric from a portion, it is always important to say a portion, of Arsenal fans that have got kind of this complex around Arteta isn't good enough, and doesn't matter what happens, he won't be good enough, and so therefore it's just constant pressure. He has to do this, and you can never kind of take a step back and go, fair play for doing this, and fair play for achieving what we did last season, and fair play for this business that we're seeing now. Is that a fair kind of a summary of a certain situation?
Yeah, I think, especially on social media, there's a definite vocal minority that will, peddle, I suppose, not negative views, but, doubts for various reasons. Like maybe they believe them, maybe they think it will get them more traction on social media or whatever. But, I mean, when you go in and around the stadium, for example, I was there a few times last season, you don't have any of this. You have people supporting the team, and if they take a step back and go, well, we didn't quite do it, but we suddenly... the gap between the players and the fans got so much closer last season. We improved at the side. We got 69 points with the youngest side in the league. And that was with 3 of our key players injured for the last 10 games. And that had a massive effect. This summer, we look like we're strengthening in key areas. All of a sudden, nobody's going to, have a horrid intake of breath when they see Saka might be injured for a game. We might have to play Pepe because you might have Raphinha there. You might have Gabriel Jesus with Nketiah coming on 60 minutes. It's progress, but it might not necessarily translate because, as I say, we don't improve in a vacuum. Then there's the World Cup to think about. There's all these things that you can't say are excuses, but they're things that are going to happen. Like they are just factually going to happen, and that we're going to have to deal with them. It's how we deal with them.
Yeah, I think how we deal with them is ultimately going to define Arsenal's season because, you can spend a ridiculous amount of money, as Manchester United have shown, and bring in some players that, if Arsenal had signed Jadon Sancho, Rafa Varane and Ronaldo, you might have been thinking about Arsenal's season very differently at the start. But actually, it's about how you bring those components together that's the most important thing. So that ultimately brings up another angle, I suppose, is that, we can bring in Raphinha, we can bring in Gabriel Jesus and Fabio Vieira and Lisandro Martinez. But a test of Arteta this season is how he's going to fit all those parts together and how he's going to get the most from them. Chris says, I think we need to reserve judgment for a while. If we bring in all of our targets, great. But if we don't and they don't gel, I don't think that makes Arteta or Edu's fault. What do you make of that? 'Cause I slightly disagree with the last part because, they've got this plan, they've got the targets, and it's their job to make sure the players they bring in are the right profile to assimilate, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I think I can agree with that, but also there's a nuance to it that, you might think that they're the perfect fit, and then 3 months down the line, they're not suddenly as interested, or they're not training as well, or they're not reacting as well to what you thought they were going to do. say Fabio Vieira, for example, if he joins, or he has joined for 35 million, and 3 months down the line he's not quite kicked on, I don't think it makes it Arteta or Edu's fault. I think what you need to do then is like, where do you go from there? And I mean, Fabio Vieira is a terrible example because he's 22, so plenty of time for him still. But it's about getting the right players in the door, and if they don't work, get them out the door again. You can have like we did with Willian. You need to keep moving the squad forward, regardless of if we've got bad apples, get them out again. And it doesn't necessarily, not every move has to be 100% correct, I suppose is what I'm saying. But it's about making sure that you rectify those mistakes early.
Roland says, honestly, I'm not against Arsenal signing Raphinha, but I think it is, in my opinion, a better option out there, cheaper and more productive. Edon Zagrova from Lille, of course, formerly of Basel. He's produced quite a lot since moving to Liga. He also plays on the right, in fairness, and, similar to Raphinha in the sense that there's that conflict with Saka. What do you make of the idea of bringing in a wide forward that plays predominantly on the right and will have to compete with Saka for minutes next season?
I really like it, and I've got a fair bit of pushback to this recently, but I think that if you watch especially the last 10, 15 games of the season, Saka was knackered. You'd watch him after about 60 minutes, he'd be looking to the bench like, "Can I come off, please? I'm dying out here. I'm going down with cramp." There were a couple of times when he went down and everyone just sort of held their breath, like, "Are we going to have to bring on Pepe?" And that's no slight against him, but he's not an Arteta player, quite clearly. Arteta doesn't like him or doesn't like the way he plays or what he does with the ball. And I think Saka is such an important cornerstone to this side that if you don't have a good backup for him, or someone who can provide competition, and let's not forget, Raphinha can play on the left, Saka can play on the left, Saka can play in Odegaard's position. There's loads of positional flexibility, but ultimately we're looking at a stage where if Saka picks up a knock or needs to be rested, we're not suddenly going, well, what are we going to do? And I think that's really important for the next step.
Yeah, and I think obviously with full competitions next year as well, you think about Europa League, League Cup, FA Cup, Premier League, and as you said, Saka, I think, was the only player that played a part in all 38 games of the Premier League season last year. And by the end, he was shattered. Now, some people pointed towards Arteta and said he should have been managed better, but when your target is Champions League and only one loss cost us, getting into that competition, I can't really sit back and blame the manager for continuing to press on with using our best player to try and get us the maximum points from those games that we had, because dropping them could have cost us even more points. For me, there are reasons why we didn't make the top four last season. We're kind of bringing it back round to, today's discussion and what we're talking about around the idea of there being no excuses. If I just read you my reply that I put to Suter on Twitter, which was, based around that tweet. For those that have joined us late, we're just kind of talking about the idea of Arteta having no excuses next season with the signings that we're prospectively trying to bring in. I said, I struggle with these views in June. I, for one, am looking forward to the season. The whole no excuses rhetoric designed to create fast backlash is simply not the way forward from a fandom perspective. I'd say fair play for this window, and I can't wait to see what we do with it. To which, to be fair to him, he replied and said, that's a fair way to look at it. This is James Suter's response. But there should be a lot of pressure as the manager of Arsenal. Pressure/no excuse rhetoric doesn't have to be taken negatively. But I didn't see too much positive around throwing out, this idea of there being no excuses next season in June prior to not already getting in your targets. Do you know what I mean? I struggle to see what isn't negative about piling the pressure on the 25th of June.
I mean, I suppose when we've got our targets, or are going to get our targets, and you look across to the other teams that maybe haven't got all of theirs yet, Tottenham are stalling on a deal for Jed Spence, I think, and Richarlison's, well, that's up in the air. And then Chelsea obviously haven't got Sterling in yet. They were linked with Jonathan Klaus, but that hasn't been done yet. When we do our business early, I suppose it almost brings forward all of the hype and expectation to now, to where people are going, well, now you've got to do this because you've done it early. And, you've got that. Because another thing was the whole pre-season. Do you remember back at the start of Arteta's reign, it was, oh, well, he hasn't had a pre-season, or he hasn't had a pre-season with these players. And now it's, well, have a pre-season. They're running out of, I suppose, reasons why we're not doing well.
What do you think they are? What do you think those reasons would be that we wouldn't do well?
This season?
Yeah, prospectively, yeah.
I mean, an injury. We're still an injury to Thomas Partey or Takahiro Tomiyasu away from playing players that are Europa League level. You've got to hope that Sambi Lokonga comes on a long way in quite a short space of time if you're going to play him instead of Elneny. I don't know to what extent the new signings are going to sort of mitigate the importance, I suppose, of like Partey or Tomiyasu, because last season they were the cornerstones, weren't they? Like,
yes,
Tomiyasu, Partey, Saka, Erdegaard. You couldn't take any of them out. They were the players that we needed, and two of them were injured. And now it's, we need to keep them fit, and then you've got to have people. You've got to have more faith in Elneny, I suppose, than most of the fan base do, to give him that contract and say to him, right, you're backing up Thomas Partey. I mean, you look at Man City and they're backing up Rodri with Calvin Phillips. So the difference is astounding. So I suppose absolutely. In that sense, we are, as I said, an injury to Thomas Partey, an injury to Tomiyasu, as it stands right now with how the window's looking like it will shape up, to being sort of back to where we were almost, where you've got loads of really good parts, but that one connecting piece is sort of just missing.
I did say at the start of the show that this was an open forum, and if you guys wanted to come on and have your say about this with myself and Ben, you could do that. The lines are still open. Message us at the Gooner Talk TV and on Instagram via the Gooner Talk. You can find us on either of those channels. Send us a DM and I'll do my best to try and get on the show. Let's bring on our first caller of the day. It's Chris. How you doing, Chris? Are you good?
Hey, Tom. How are you doing, mate?
Very good, man. How is it down under? Tell me how the weather's like. I'm sure it's brilliant, as always.
Mate, I've moved.
You've moved? Where are you now?
I moved to Thailand, mate.
Fair.
Yeah. Cost of living is so much lower. It's beautiful here.
Fair play, man. Fair play. Glad to hear you're doing good and well. Tell me what your thoughts are kind of around this topic at the moment about the idea that Mikel Arteta has no excuses if we get in our top targets for next season.
It's just boring, unnecessary, added pressure. Give it a break. We're like in the middle of maybe our best transfer window ever that I can remember. And they're still bringing like these negative, I was going to swear then, these negative garbage towards the club. Like, I don't get it. If people are whinging, like come December, if we've been on a bad run, then fair. The team's not gelling. Fair. Start pointing fingers, but not now. Not now. Enjoy the links to like really good players. I think I haven't been this excited about a transfer window ever. I think this has been really good. Every player we've been linked to, I've been excited about.
And it's not just links anymore either, because of course, we've got Fabio Vieira surprisingly out of nowhere. We love that. I mean, myself and Ben as journalists are sitting there cringing at the fact that we weren't able to get that information anywhere near the point that it came out. I always, as a fan, I love it when that kind of thing happens, because it kind of reinvests my faith that the club are working. And we did a story on Football London where we revealed about Arsenal's strategies that they're putting in place so that happens more often, and we don't hear anywhere near as much as we have done in the past. But obviously it's impossible to stop all the information coming through, and hence why we know about G.Jesus that looks very close at the moment, Raphinha that Arsenal are really pushing for, and of course Lisandro Martinez as well, and all of that kind of combines to build up this expectation. But Ben, what do you make of Chris's comments there? About the idea of it being basically garbage right now, just to use your word, Chris, and I appreciate you deviating from this to get that out. That was great. But no, what do you make of what you said there, Ben?
Yeah, I think I was trying to be more diplomatic about it. But I think that for the most part, it's bang on. I mean, there's a lot of people that want to see Arsenal at, 2003-04 levels now, and then they don't. I mean, I don't suppose they don't appreciate it. Maybe it just sort of, for the sake of their argument, they don't quite factor in how much the Premier League's changed. It's 6 horses now in a race instead of 4. There's so much more money in it. You can't really outsmart the market as much anymore. It's changed massively, but people still want to try and hold Arsenal to the same sort of standards. And then there's, there are certain people on Twitter that will point back to, Wenger got sacked for not getting 4th or whatever. Yeah. And the whole landscape's changed quite drastically. And I think that is something that is perhaps overlooked in those sorts of arguments.
Yeah, big time.
Let's bring on Tarun Super Chats. This is what I want to get your thoughts on, Chris. Tarun says getting into the Champions League is a non-negotiable. I love the irony of using Arteta saying, for me, this is a sport of overachieving. If we want to be that club, and I assume by that club he means getting back to obviously where we were as a team back in the early 2000s, late 90s, and before that for many years as well in other eras, the target should mirror that. What do you make about that? Because I can't disagree with what Tarun's saying there. You know, that's where we have to target. We have to be looking to try and get to that level. But it's about, for me, this idea of adding pressure that I'm struggling with in June.
Yeah. Look, top four is has to be our goal. Even top three at the moment. I feel that Chelsea's having a bit of a bad window. Depending on how they go towards the end of it. But they've ran out of centre backs. The third and fourth spots out for grads. I think it's our target, but it all depends on how the season goes. The season is a 38-game period, but it's really it's all about fine margins. Last year, we could have finished fourth if it wasn't for a couple of games. That run against Palace and the 3 games we lost there, it's all fine margins. So you just got to see how the team's gelling together, how they're playing together, and then the results, see how they fall into place. But yeah, fourth is what we want. And we got close this year, but it's looking better now, especially with these new signings. Come on.
Who's exciting you the most about the new signings?
The only one that's through the door. That's how I'm kind of treating it so far.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that.
So Fabio Vieira is a throwback to how Wenger used to sign diminutive, skillful players for the midfield, but then used to throw them out wide. Rosicky, Alexander Kleb, Arshavin
for a bit.
Yeah, so I think he'll come off the right a little bit as well. But now that we're signing Raphinha, I don't know, but I'm really excited about him. But the one that I like the look of is Lisandro Martinez as well. But I've seen you guys talk about his position. You think that he'll be the left-footed second centre back for Gabriel? I don't think so.
Yeah, where do you see him playing more?
I think we're signing him for the midfield.
Really?
I think he'll play at the number 6 when Partey will push up into the 8 and Xhaka will go to the bench, or the other way around. I think he'll play in the role of Xhaka's role while Partey screens for the forward defenders and Odegaard will sit next to him.
Chris,
that's what I think.
Thank you so much for your time, mate. I really appreciate you coming on.
Mate.
We're going to get our next caller on very shortly, but thank you for jumping on, as always. And I'll speak to you very soon. Have a good one, bro. See you later.
See you guys.
Bye-bye. Massive thank you to Chris for coming on the channel and having a chat, as always. Before we get our next guest on, Ben, I want to get your reaction to a couple more comments from the chat box. Vignesh says, I disagree completely with the view that it depends on how the team gels. That is the job of the manager. By saying this, we are already setting excuses up. What do you make of the comment?
I mean, I understand the sentiment. I'm not sure that.
It is the manager's job, isn't it?
It is the manager's job to get them to gel. And as you say before, it's the manager's job to get the right players in the door. And I think that probably is a fair comment, but at the same time, I don't know. I think I'd probably do this. I do agree with that for the most part. I won't quibble with it too much.
Let's get some more thoughts on it from our next caller. Let's bring in Tariq. How you doing, Tariq? You doing good? You well?
Hey, Tom. Thanks for letting me come on, man. I'm good. And nice to meet you, Ben, as well.
Yeah, lovely to meet you too.
Smashing stuff. I've left the comment up because I'm curious to get your thoughts on this one, because I think it's a fair point. It is the job of the manager to identify targets with his recruitment team that he feels are going to be the best people for the job. So therefore, is there an argument here that it doesn't matter, who comes in? If they don't gel, that's then fingers being pointed towards the coach.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I kind of go with the thought and the notion of there is no excuses. And my big reason for that is, as Vignesh is saying here, is it's his decision. And we know with Arteta, he does have a lot of power in transfers and players that he wants to bring in. And with the players that we have been linked with, and this is, of course, we're talking about this as if we do bring all the players that we are strongly linked to, is a lot of them are Premier League proven players. And when we're talking about if Tielemans happens, but of course that's up in the air, but Raphinha, players that have been Jesus, players like Lisandro Martinez, who have been proven at the top level in the Champions League for Ajax, and Fabio Vieira doing it in a top Portuguese league, winning a league there. And of course, some of these players will need time to develop. But on top of the players that we have signed and the core that we have built in with the spine, with last season bringing in Ramsdale, bringing in Benjamin White, and then Tomiyasu and those players and that core to build from, I do feel like he does have no excuses in that sense. And he has been given a lot of power at the club by Edu. And this is coming from someone who's Tom knows this, and I'm very much someone who's Arteta in and someone who's supporting the process. And I do see a lot of work in terms of tactically, in decision making, which I've supported a lot of. And yeah, and I really do see what Arteta has done. But he does, the pressure that has been put upon him now by saying no excuses. I hear where you're coming from in that, Tom, but that pressure comes with expectation. And I'm sure a lot of us, and it'd be nice to hear your thoughts if we do get these signings. What's your minimum expectation of the club for next season?
For me, it is, as I've said, to get back into the Champions League. That has to be the target, because for me, I don't see any other way of progressing next season. That if Arsenal finish 5th next year, that's not us progressing forwards, is it? That's us. We've stagnated if we do that. We're not going. I think that there's obviously there are factors. Some people, this is where kind of the word excuses comes into it for some. I don't look at it as excuses. I think there are reasons why Arsenal didn't get top 4 last season that are not quote unquote excuses. The injuries, as Ben pointed out, to players like Partey and Tierney and Tomiyasu at crucial points in the season, for me, cost us. Had those players been fit, I have no doubt we get 3 extra points in the season, with no doubt in my mind at all. And I think obviously that could come into play next year. The difference is obviously if we add 150 million plus pounds worth of player to the squad next year, the factors like injury should, in theory, have less of an impact on our prospective, ambitions. Ben, how would you answer the question? Would it be something on those similar lines?
Yeah, I think that you have to look at where we fell short last season and look to strengthen that in this window, or at least have faith in the players that, I suppose didn't deliver last season, but maybe improve the pieces around them to give them maybe less responsibility, or they're less focused upon, like Cedric and Elneny, for example. But I think that also, like, Thursday, Sunday is never an easy schedule, and I think you need a lot of players to be able to do it and do it well. And I think that if Arsenal want to go deep in every competition this season, I was looking at the stats. You're looking at someone like Saka, for example, he plays every game for England, and if he plays every game for Arsenal, he'd be playing something like 70 games next season between August and May, which is ridiculous. So that goes back to my point about why I think Raphinha was a really important signing, despite all the jokes about having already got a right winger and not needing another one. But I think that the squad depth, you need to improve the bits that are weak, and I think to an extent we're doing that, because if you look at the bench this season, when you take Saka off, you've got Pepe, or you can switch wings with Martinelli and put Martinelli on the right and Smith on the left. And now you're suddenly looking at Raphinha and going, well, that's a massive improvement.
Yeah, Jimmy Mack kind of hits the big question with the nail on the head, Tariq, for me. He says, Tom, if he doesn't get top 4 nor win the Europa League, should he go? That's the question. If you say yes, then we are saying the same thing. Now, I feel like it's an impossible question in June to answer, because we don't know what the season holds. For me, my expectation is Champions League qualification next season, but there are things that can happen across a season. My expectation was get back into Europe last year, but as the season progressed, my expectations did change a bit because of the position we'd granted ourselves, and I was hoping that we'd get top 4. Now, because those expectations changed based upon what we did, because of the decisions that were made by the coach and the performances of the players, I was willing to go, because we didn't meet my changing expectations, it's not for me, cut and dry as you go. But next season, do you think that does change? So if he doesn't get top 4, does he go, in your mind?
Yeah, and a big reason for that is because when we're talking about, you mentioned it about the progression and the progression of the side. And I feel when I'm looking at Arsenal, the only area that leaves me with a slight bit of doubt is in that defensive midfield role. That's what Sambi Lokonga, I know you've been speaking about, in saying that he has the ability, certainly has the technical ability and the mentality from what we see, even how he posts on social media. And he talks a lot about mindset. in taking it to that next level, but he's still yet to prove that. Whereas when we're looking at our defence now, a settled back line, when we had our starters in Tierney, Tomiyasu, Gabriel and Ben White, we was a much stronger outfit at the back, and then adding Ramsdale into it too. So we've got a good base to start from. And then in midfield with Thomas Partey in there, and then adding in a Yuri Tielemans or a centre midfielder that can progress upon Xhaka and keep Xhaka in the squad, by the way, because, of course, when Tom does his tactical breakdown, we actually see a little bit more how important he is into the side and how good he actually is. So Tom does an amazing job on that. And we need to have that.
I didn't pay him to say that. Just letting you know. That wasn't paid for.
Is that the check? Oh yeah, thanks.
These things are the post.
But and then going forward into our attack now, which a lot of fans have said, why are we spending so much money on a Raphinha? When our issue and the question that was posing Arteta last season is, why aren't we playing Pepe? Why is Saka playing so many games and when he's definitely looking unfit? With that attack going forward now, adding in a Fabio Vieira as an alternative or a complement to Ødegaard, given the game scenario and the game situation with the 5 substitutions and whatnot, we have so much imbalance going back and forth. And that's why he needs to get Champions League qualification, even if we finish 5th, but we've won the Europa League. Of course, we'd still have discussions then, and there would be a more doubt about Arteta's potential. But for me, I would say he's achieved his objective, and that's getting into Champions League football. And that's the main thing for me. I do not see a world unless there is a Liverpool-esque type of injury crisis that we hear. And of course, that is a possibility, but that's for me not an excuse. And it would be unfortunate if that happened, but he would essentially still have to be moved on and there's some acceptance of responsibility that he would have to take.
Tariq, thank you so much for your time, mate. Really appreciate you jumping on. As always, tell people where they can find you and what you're going to be up to on your own channel.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, you can find me at Tariq Talks. It's not an Arsenal predominantly based channel, but I do talk a lot about Arsenal, of course, being an Arsenal fan. But yeah, we're talking about a lot more transfers and discussing the Premier League season and Champions League overall. Thanks for having me on, Tom. And nice to meet you.
No problem,
well,
mate. Absolutely. Make sure you check out Tariq's channel, as always. Have a good one, bro. See you later. Massive thank you to Tariq. Put some really good opinions there, Ben, didn't he? Smashed it. Lovely stuff. Let's bring on our next caller for our next conversation. Let's bring in Ajit. How you doing, Ajit? You good? You well?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good stuff. Where do you kind of sit, mate, on this excuses line for Arteta? Where's your head at with this argument?
Yeah, I mean, considering the last season where, I think there was progress, but as you also said, last minute, we kind of came close to the finish line, but just didn't go past it with the Champions League thing. But I still think it was an okay season, not brilliant, but still not bad. So this season, yes, if Arteta gets his players, and especially the big thing which has been getting the striker, which Arteta never brought a striker of his own in his tenure. So yeah, if he gets that, and if we have the first 11 especially, and the bench which we think is enough for a top 4, then if he doesn't get it, then yeah, there will be no excuses, I think. And it also could be in the form of winning the Europa League, of course. So yeah, let's see.
Absolutely, there is 2 opportunities. Just before I get Ben's thoughts on this, what do you make of the idea of talking about it in June, like the timing of these conversations? I agree with you that I think it's going to be very difficult if we don't achieve next season those Champions League qualifications. It'd be very difficult to defend Arteta. But what do you kind of make about piling the pressure on to the manager and the club in June?
Yeah, I mean, yes. So there's a big star. You see, those disclaimers things which are there in any product or advertisement. It's like that. We need to give a disclaimer, if we do the business, then we can say these things, because of course it depends on how we strengthen the team. So I guess maybe by the window ends, that might be a slightly better time to say this. But yeah, I mean, it depends on if we do the business.
Absolutely. Sam, thank you first of all for the donation. Really appreciate that. Well done. Love hearing respectful opinions from both sides. Speaking of both sides, a question from Ronnie Pickering, star of one of the most famous viral videos online. If you've not seen Ronnie Pickering, go and check it out. But Ben, what do you make of this question? He says, if we were to finish 6th to 8th, but won the Europa League and ultimately qualified for the Champions League, would the league position worry you? I think it would worry me. Of course, Champions League would improve us.
Yeah. I think. I mean, if you put it like that, yeah, I think it would worry me. I think that I think it depends on how the performances are. And it depends on a lot of other things like how the team and the fans are sort of gelling together again. There's been a lot of work, I think, that has gone into restoring the fans, certainly at the ground, their faith in the team and the club. Especially after those Cronk Out protests a couple of years ago, now all of a sudden it seems like we've got owners that want the best for the club that wasn't always clear. And, you've got players that fans actually like watching and that will give their all and won't be phony and sick for any reason and things like that. I think that the step up for me has to be in performance, and it has to be like on New Year's Day when we went toe-to-toe with Manchester City. We need to be doing that against the biggest sides. We can't be getting beaten 4-0 by Liverpool again every time. We need to be improving to the point where we're not, it sounds stupid, but we're not getting smacked by the top two every time we play them, basically. And I think that is where I suppose the higher level performance is what interests me more than maybe, I don't know, a stupid mistake costing us 3 points against Southampton and, us finishing 6th in a ridiculously tight race with Tottenham and Chelsea. There's always going to be factors. If we finish 6th and it's quite clear that we've finished 6th and underperformed and we haven't done that, then yes, that does worry you. Obviously, it worries you.
Absolutely. What do you make of the business that we might do, Ajit, this summer? Raphinha, Gabriel Jesus, Martinez. We've already got Vieira, Marquinhos, Turner. There's a lot of players. Did you expect us to be this active in the market?
No, actually, that Raphinha thing, I had completely didn't expect it. I thought he would go to Barcelona or even Liverpool. I think might go for him if Salah or Mane left. So that thing has really surprised me. So yeah, I mean, it has been good so far. And it's a bit weird to say Arsenal being so proactive, to be honest. Weird in a good way, of course. But yeah, I mean, it's been good. But I also I wanted to ask you one thing, Tom. With Gabriel Jesus, I know he has been good with the link up play, but I saw some stats now. I don't know how much to take from it, but they basically discussed in the stats on Sky Sports about his expected goals and goals ratio, and apparently he should have scored 12 more goals than what he scored across all his years in Man City.
12 goals.
It's 12,
yeah.
6, I think.
Last season or across his whole career?
Across his whole career. So career. Did it worry you a bit? Because kind of little bit for me, but I think if he improves his finishing, then definitely I think he will be good. But I think his finishing might still need bit improvement.
I think it's a fair question to kind of question it, because if you think about 12 is a lot of goals across 4 or 5 seasons he's been at Manchester City. I think that one of the reasons as to why that perhaps has happened is because, unlike, say, Tammy Abraham, Victor Osimhen, Patrick Schick, guys that play week in, week out in the striker position, their role doesn't change. The difference with Jesus is his role has changed nearly every single game for City. He's either playing in the middle, on the right, on the left. Guardiola uses him in all these different roles. And when you don't have consistency or expectation about minutes or position, I think that does affect confidence, and that will affect kind of mindset in those examples. So when he comes into Arsenal and he's playing every minute, we think, is that number 9 starting in those positions, and has, still a level of creativity around him that Arsenal brings, nowhere near of what Man City, of course, but certainly good enough that you would be able to create plenty of good chances from him. Martin Odegaard was up there with the highest chance creators in the league last season. Bukayo Saka is a creative player. Raphinha, if he was to be brought in, is a creative player, and his XA was above 8, and he only had 3 assists because he just didn't have the players to finish off the chances that he was creating those opportunities for. Ben, what do you think of Ajit's question? Does it worry you that Gabriel Jesus has an XG or an expected goals that would see him should have scored more than he has done for City?
Not if he gets the chances. I think as a striker, it's just about volume of chances, and I think you're looking at him through a Manchester City lens. When you look at him through an Arsenal lens, is he a clear upgrade on Lacazette? Yes. Is he a clear upgrade in what Arteta wants on what Aubameyang was for us? Yes. In terms of link-up play, in terms of leading the line. I'm pretty sure Aubameyang had similar big chance misses and that sort of thing. It was always, I remember, Aubameyang will miss 3 and then score 1 or score 2, and he'll win us the game. It's the nature of a striker, I think, to miss a lot of chances. Every good striker, I think, misses a lot of chances.
Yanni says XG is just that. He had chances. He is not the best goal scorer. It depends on how he develops. Ajit, how do you feel about the answers?
Yeah, I think you are right. Like, he was not like a regular starter because of Aguero, like, and a great striker as he was. He didn't get like regular starting chances every game. I think, I mean, for me, like, if he gets 15 or more than 15 goals, like in his first 2 seasons, that will be fine. And as long as like the goals are distributed across the front line, like 30 goals, I think for the front line, I think that is a good like a number. So as long as we get like those goals as a group with the 3 or 4 players which we will have in the front line, like even Saka and Smith Rowe along with Jesus, and also if like Raphinha comes in, if they are distributed, like then it will help our team going forward.
Thank you so much for your time, mate. Really appreciate you jumping on the channel. Tell people, if you want to, where they can find you and what you're gonna be up to.
Yeah, I mean, my Instagram is AJRAY007. I post about Arsenal and also like some wildlife things about wildlife, because that's what I study.
Lovely stuff. A David Attenborough in the making. I love it. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah,
thanks
that's
so
a
much,
big
mate.
shoes to fill. Thank you.
I
Thanks,
will
Tom.
speak to you very soon, I'm sure. Have a good one. Thank you so much for coming on. Massive thank you to Ajit for coming on the show and voicing his views. We're going to take a few more comments from the chat box before we get our next caller on. Of course, the lines are still open. If you'd like to come onto the channel, just drop us off a DM at the Gooner Talk TV or at the Gooner Talk on Instagram. Send us a message and we'll do our best to try and get you on. Let's scroll up. Goku says, I love this. Goku from The Mandalorian. Now, if you watch this, I did a morning show the other day. I'm not into my Star Wars, and I'm not into Dragon Ball Z either, really. And so when someone put Goku as their name, I was like, is he like from Star Wars or something? And yeah, now this is stuck where now I wonder who it is. I'm really curious who it is that's created an account called that. That's brilliant. But Goku from The Mandalorian says, I think as a focal point for Arsenal, he will flourish. This is Jesus, of course. A lot of City players do claim he hit a bit of a plateau, and a lot of times players like that do fall into comfort. A move may reinvigorate Jesus. How excited are you, Ben, about Jesus coming to Arsenal? It seems.
I'm very excited. I think he's probably the one that I'm most excited about. I mean, Raphinha's the like one all the way up there, the one that you never thought you'd get. But Jesus is the one where I sort of think he's the guy that can fire us to Champions League football. Him and Eddie Nketiah if he continues his end of season form. But I think I think that's right. I think he will improve. I think confidence, minutes, all of that sort of thing will make him better. He's only 25. There's a lot of progressing for him to do. There's the Brazil squad, and he'll want to be in that Brazil squad as a number 9, I would think, because at the moment their wide areas are looking very, very busy. Raphinha, Martinelli, Antony. There's lots of players that will be in Chiche's mind to play on the wings at the World Cup, whereas through the middle they're sort of looking a little light. So I think Jesus will have the chance to stake his claim as a number 9, and I think he will be really, really motivated to take it.
Did you watch the Tim Vickery video on Sky when he broke down? Because that was a lot of people have asked me about that, saying now well, Tim spoke to the manager and how he talks about how he said he prefers to play in the wide areas. Obviously that is a dated exchange between Tim and the manager, and that doesn't necessarily represent how he feels as of today. But when you heard that, did that give you any worries about us investing so much in a player that has vocally admitted he prefers to play in a position that isn't what we're probably buying him for?
I mean, it's always going to put doubts in your mind, but I think that if we're going to spend this much money on a player, we probably would have I like to think we would have sat down and gone, right, you're going to play number 9. Are you okay with that? And him having not gone, actually, I'd rather play on the right wing. You think that we've done that, and I think that, as I say, the wings are getting much more stacked in the middle of the pitch for Brazil. So he's probably. I mean, if I were him, I'd be looking and going, well, they know that I can play as a number 9. If I can do it to a decent level at Arsenal, I'm in that Brazil squad. I'm starting for them every game. And I'd be motivated to do that personally. I mean, I can't speak for him, but that's how my mind will go.
No, of course. There's nearly 1,200 of you listening live on the show this afternoon. If you could drop a like on the video, would really appreciate the support on the channel. We are keeping the phone lines open. I keep saying phone lines like it's a classic phone-in show, but all you need to do is DM me us on Twitter at the Gooner Talk TV or on Instagram on the Gooner Talk, and we'll do our best to get you on the show and discuss what was our primary topic. I know we're going off on a few tangents, which is fine because I want to address as many comments in the comment section as we can, kind of around the topic of whether or not Mikel Arteta has no excuses for next season if Arsenal get the business done that they need to do. Gary says, I'm much more excited over Jesus than Raphinha, to be honest. I like Raphinha. He is good, but 60 million plus is a lot, but it's not my money, as I always say. What do you make about the price tag? Is it putting you off Raphinha in any way, or are you quite like me and Gary, where it's just kind of, it's not our money, so I don't really care?
I quite like it in that Arsenal have sort of gone, he's our man. If he's 60 million, he's 60 million, but that's who we want. It's the same with like Vlahovic in January. They were like, he's our man. We're willing to pay 75 million. Ultimately that never came through, but it wasn't a case of, right, we're going to pivot and get Morata on loan with an option to buy at 30 million or whatever. It's got, I quite like the, I suppose, single-minded, clear vision that they have for each position. Because normally, you'll know as someone who does transfer shows, you're linked to about 5 or 6 players every day per position. And this summer, it's been sort of Gabriel Jesus, and then it was Raphinha. Yeah, exactly. And now Lisandro Martinez. I haven't heard any alternatives to Lisandro Martinez. The only thing I have heard is alternatives to Tielemans, but where that goes, I don't know. But I think that Arsenal are finally getting to the point where we're like, well, we want this man, and we're going to buy this guy. And if we can't get him, we'll wait. And if we can get him, we'll pay whatever it takes to get him.
I love this comment from Sam. Tom, the chat box is going to get a transfer daily out of you today, whether you like it or not. It seems that even when we're discussing something different, they're like, transfers. Tell me, I need to know what's going on in the world of Arsenal right now. To be fair, Sunday's been pretty quiet. I wouldn't have minded not having the show this morning because it's not like it's gone mad. Of course, there was quite a lot of news about Raphinha yesterday and how Arsenal are going to, trying their best to push ahead, and Jesus is looking ever closer, and the Lisandro Martinez still continues to roll forwards. But, I think it's great that we've got, as you've said there, Ben, kind of these clear options early on in the window. I remember last year, I remember 2 years ago when I first started doing the tactical breakdowns and I was still working in teaching, and I was able to pretty much talk about a new transfer target every day. There was that many targets Arsenal were being linked to, but this summer has just been very, very much more conservative, very more targeted, specific. We have our main targets. We've got some in already. We managed to do some of the surprising news as well with Fabio Vieira, which has been great. But actually, seeing us be a lot more targeted gives me a lot more confidence that, we know what we're doing, we know who we want, and hopefully that we can get them done as well. Jack says, I can't knock the job Mikel has done so far. Look at the squad overhaul, turned us into a club with a future, and finally looks like a steady improvement. Now, following on from this comment, Ben, and this is a tricky question, is there any way that Arteta finishes without Champions League qualification next season in a defensible position?
From who?
From anyone that kind of wants to sit and say he shouldn't go. Do you know what I mean?
No, I don't think outsiders there's any way he finishes outside the Champions League in a defensible position. But I think that the Cronkies, I mean, the ones that matter effectively, unless he's mass protested out. But
I still don't think that's going to have to change anything. Yeah,
I think the Cronkies gave him a contract after 3 losses. They were quick. Arteta was quick to point out, it's like, never seen loyalty like this, whatever. They clearly believe in what he's doing. And I think that unless they see very clear evidence that what is going on is not a step forward, if I don't know why it wouldn't be, but like if we finish 5th or 6th or whatever, and it was, considered a step backwards, they might let him go. But I think they've invested so much money in this project and in his players that it will be a case of, well, we'll just sort of keep going with it.
Yeah, I would be shocked if Arteta if they get rid of Arteta, if we say finish similar to where we finished last season. I'd be shocked if they got rid of him. Now, they've only just renewed his contract. He's here until 2025? I think that was a 2-year extension on top of the 1 year he had left. So I would be absolutely shocked if they got rid of him. In answer to that question, around whether there is a defensible position, there's been some responses, of course, in the chat. Knuckles just simply says, no, there's no defense of it whatsoever. Whereas DJ Assassin says, yes, there is. But what I want to know is some of the reasons, behind why you feel they are the positions to take. DJ says there would have been a clear improvement on a coach available and waiting to take over, and one that would not lose the backing of this close-knit young group to even consider dropping Arteta. I mean, you said there, like, fans would have to kind of campaign to get him out. In what kind of scenario do you think the club would? What would need to happen from a competitive standpoint, not a fan standpoint, but like competitively, what do you think would need to happen for the ownership to say, nah, we need to move on to someone else?
I think we saw with Emery, if you lose the dressing room, if you're getting battered in basically every stat apart from the final score, if you're conceding 26 shots to Watford or whatever it was, if you've sort of, I suppose the atmosphere at the stadium as well, there's something like match day atmospheres, I think, plays a much bigger role than we give it credit for.
Yeah,
I think that under Emery it was stale, and it might not necessarily have been any fault of Emery, because I think that he had a very tricky job, and I think that they tried to short fix it, and that was something that the ownership clearly went for.
Oh, of course, yeah.
With Socrates and David Luiz, and he's Emery's spoken out about wanting Nkunku and Zaha, and all these players that are much better than what we ended up with effectively. But I think that there was a clear disconnect between the players and the manager, the fans and the manager, and I think that is where the sort of levels it needs to get to. Maybe not toxic, but to the levels where there's discontent around everybody, and removing the manager is the easiest change to make.
So say if what happened last season happens next season, where, we have a solid season, we're competitive, we're leading the race to top 4 the whole time, and then we just miss out at the final hurdle. Is that enough, do you think, for... I don't want to say the Kroenkes to make a decision, because I think the obvious answer, as we all know, will be no. They won't make a decision based off that. But would it be the right choice to keep him on in that case?
I don't know, is the honest answer. I think that it depends on, which managers are out there that match their philosophy at the right time, whether there are managers out there that can do better. Because I always... Is
that a really big factor for you? Because, there's been times where the options out there just haven't been there. And there's also the factor of, do we trust the ownership to make the right choice when that decision comes? Yeah,
I think after when we lost 5-0 to Man City, third game of the season, or second game of the season, or whatever it was. I remember we wrote a piece on 101 about 5 managers that could take over from Mikel Arteta. And you look down and you sort of like, well, the best out there is Graham Potter. Like that was the best alternative. And Graham Potter's a great manager, I think. And I think he may have done as good or better a job as Arteta or whatever. But the options weren't like blow your socks off good. Then you're not like, well, we're going to get Zidane in instead, or we're going to get this manager in, or whatever. I think that there's always everyone's always like, sack the manager. And you sort of go, well, who are you going to bring in? And it's, well, we didn't think that far.
Yeah, no, it's fair. I love this comment from, where is it? I've just lost it. No, where is it? The Hulster, who says, just saying, can we play the games first, please? And it's the ironic hypocrisy, I suppose, of what we're talking about. Because, we jumped on to talk about the idea of there being no excuses next season. And here we are discussing what it would take, for the season to end and for Arteta to no longer be here. Does that put the pressure on? I'm not sure. I think that it's important to have the balanced convo and to just discuss both points of view, which is why we're here talking about it now. But yeah, I suppose there is hypocrisy about it in a weird way. There's always that obsession of wanting to talk about the coach and about what they might do and what might happen. The reality of the situation right now is Arsenal are going into next season potentially with one of the best, if not the best transfer window if they get their targets that, you know, we've ever seen as Arsenal fans. I have to plug now a show that's coming out at 7 on the Gooners Pod. Mike from the Gooners Pods, that Ben knows, of course, very well. But Mike, Magic Mike, as he's best known, doing his good work over there with of course, Owen and Andy, etc. But Mike is producing a show specifically dedicated to the whole premise of where is the money coming from? You know, people talking about rival fans, and we discussed this with French on yesterday's show about, you know, why everyone's getting very mad about how Arsenal have got all this money. Well, if you're questioning where Arsenal have got this money from, make sure you tune in at 7 o'clock over on the Gooners Pods. That's the Gooners Pods. You can search up on YouTube. You will find it. And Mike's doing an entire explainer with presentations and stats and numbers. I know a lot of you subscribers who subscribe here love stats and numbers, so I'm sure you'll enjoy that. So do make sure you go over there. Set your alarm 7 p.m. UK time. It'll be over there. In regards to other shows on this channel today at 8 o'clock tonight, I'm doing a bumper podcast with 6 people, 3 in 2 separate halves, 3 of our members in the first half an hour, 3 other members from the Discord in the second half an hour, talking more about Arsenal's transfer window. So make sure you tune in at 8 o'clock UK time tonight for that. Ben, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Really appreciate your time. Always a pleasure to chat. Tell people where they can find you and what you're going to be up to, of course.
Yeah, well, as you can probably see on screen, you can find me on Twitter at BenBrowning3. I try and be unbiased, but I'm an Arsenal fan, so I do mostly tweet about Arsenal. I'm sorry. It's just sort of what comes across my timeline. You know, you interact with what you get. Yeah, I write for 101. There'll be stuff on there every day. Every day for the next couple of weeks. You know, stuff. Hopefully, some interviews coming. Always transfer gossip. You know, the latest on whatever comes out. Where are we? Raphinha, Gabriel Jesus, Yuri Tielemans potentially. Hopefully, yeah, you can find me over there.
Smashed it. Make sure you give Ben a follow on Twitter at BenBrowning3 and all of his written work, of course, with the likes of Drew and the gang over at 101 Great Goals. Speaking of Drew, fingers crossed. I feel like if I say it live, it forces him to do it. We are meant to be podcasting on Monday with Drew, you'll be happy to know, and John, Miami John, who's now Chicago John. Hopefully we'll be both on the podcast on Monday. So I've said it live. You can go and tweet Drew, although I keep forgetting which Twitter handle he has now. I mean, he changes it like the wind. I'm actually going to try and set. You know what it is, Ben?
Last time I checked, it was Logic. Is it Logic?
Yeah, it's not that anymore. He's changed it.
Anymore.
No, he's hiding. I swear he's hiding this, man. I'm going to find it. Here you go. It's at Mixed Kid Remix. So there you go. I don't know why. Maybe you can tweet and ask why it's Mixed Kid Remix. But yeah, just tweet Drew and be like, you better be on the pod on Monday. Otherwise, you know, Tom's going to come and find you. Actually, I don't need to because he's coming over in August. So he's actually coming to me. So I'll be able to do it then. But thank you, Ben, again for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time, as always. Thank you, listeners, for listening, as always. Do drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed this chat. And, of course, we're trying to do more of these discussion shows around more social Arsenal opinions based upon the news, of course. But we will be back tomorrow morning as well, at 8 a.m, giving you all the latest Arsenal transfer news. And, of course, I'll be live later on this evening at 8 p.m. with 6 of our Discord members for further transfer chat as well. Thank you to all of our guests that we've had come on today for our phone-in, and a massive thank you to Ben again as well. We will see you one more time today at 8. But other than that, it's been a real pleasure. And, as always, up the Arsenal.